Good morning, good afternoon, and come on Talibou, and come on Seva, and what's up, bro? And then Assalamu alaikum. This is Musal, Matt Meacham Jr. I'm signing in on my talk station. So I guess some of you guys are gonna try to find another station to go to. I'm getting ready to do some talking now. Maybe I have a few members of my cut who would just, who a few members of my cut may decide to stay to hear what I have to say. I got a lot to say, but I'm not going to say too much because I got some good news for my cut. I'm going to do a book reading today because my publisher has already published. What happened was I had to finish that book. I finished that book yesterday. I said, I got to get this book finished because I got a plan. And I'm going to tell you about my plan. What happened was I finished the book, submitted it to my publisher, and you can buy this book that I'm going to start reading. The War Has Begun. I'm going to start reading today on my E=mc² rock and roll station. So when I finish talking to you guys, I'm going to start reading from that book, but I'll be at E=mc² rock and roll. What happened was, I was writing this book, I said, I got to get this book up. I got my personal reasons that I had to get this book done. And I started on that book. I finished that book yesterday. And I submitted it to my publisher last night. And they have already approved it will be published as an ebook. Well, I'm waiting to hear. I don't know about the paperback and the hardcover, but I'm waiting to hear from them. And more than likely, maybe I may have to do a little this and that. But it is published as an ebook at this very moment. But I'm working on it being published as a paperback and as a hardcover. Well, that means that there it is again. I got a whole 3 weeks in front of me before next year. So what I'll do, I'm not gonna talk about it, but in the time that I have, I'll use my time to work on another book. And this book, now, I think what I'm gonna do next year, I'm gonna be a little more, not so trashy with the language. Because the first book that I'm going to start working with is the evolution. It's called Language Evolution and the Emergence of African Drama. That's a scholarly book. I'll name it again. The name of the book that I'll be working on next year. Don't worry, you guys who don't like the intellectual stuff. But you guys who like the intellectual stuff, I will be starting on my book. In fact, I'm going to start on the book, next week with all the time I got. But anyway, that book is called Language Evolution and the Emergence of African Drama. It's an academic book, a book that I did research on. And what happens is, I deal with what I always love to deal with. I love to deal with languages, linguistics, things that deal with language science. I've always had an interest in languages. So my next book, which I will not talk about, I'm not going to talk about it until next year, but I'm just going to give you a preview. My next book it won't be a novel. It would be a scholarly book. Yes, it will be, again, I'll give you the title of the next book that I started working on. It's called Language Evolution and the Emergence of African Drama. So I won't talk about that book to you until next year, but let me talk about the book that I'm going to do. What's going to happen is, as soon as I check out here, I'm going to go right to my book reading channel, and I will begin reading from the very beginning, my book that has already been okayed as an ebook, and the ebook is out today. Now we're just waiting for it to be in paperback and hardcover, which will probably be the case next week. So, but what you guys, we don't have any money in your pocket. Here's a chance. I'm going to read the whole book. Now, let me give you a warning. I'm a philosophical type of person. You know, I like to talk philosophy. I don't know, you know, when I was an undergrad, you know, the word philosophy I always had, it's, you know, it always meant something, you know, it meant like philosophy, you know, and, you know. So I, you know, like I did study philosophy, and I enjoy it, you know. But I think it's good for the mind. It makes you, you know, it's a good thing for the mind. It may not be a practical thing for people to do, to study, to major in philosophy. I didn't major in philosophy. I majored in drama and philosophy. But, you know, what can you do with philosophy besides philosophize? So what the philosophy did to me, it just gave me a lot of ideas to deal with. And I guess that's why I'm able and enjoy, that's why I am able and I enjoy writing books. So I'm gonna start on my, if you go, when I leave this broadcast on my Musal Corner Consultant International channel, I'm gonna go to my E=MC² rock and roll channel, and I am going to begin to read from my book just recently published entitled The War Has Begun. Now, this is a simple but complex book, and it's not the type of book you're gonna, when I read, there are gonna be some things in that book you would not expect it to happen. Because what I do is, okay, first of all, this book takes place 200 years in the future. You know, the imagination, you know, that philosophical thing, you know. It gives me a chance to exercise my philosophical longing. But see, this book, The War Has Begun, it takes place 200 years in the future. But when I read it, you're gonna say, wait a minute, I can only talk about human things. I can only talk about things that are relevant to me. And the thing is, it's fiction, but perhaps it's not fiction. I'll tell you why perhaps it's not fiction. See, this goes to my theory of predestination. God is the creator of everything. Every idea that we have is a result of God's creation. And anything that exists in the mind is a consequence of an action of God. So if I can, basically, my personal philosophy is that whatever that can be imagined in the mind exists. It may not exist here on earth or here in our own reality. But the fact that it exists in our minds is evidence that this thing, whatever it may be, exists somewhere. All we have to do is look up into the sky and look at the infinite universes up there. And they consider the idea of infinity, which is quite painstaking if you don't want to use your head. So, all right, I'm writing about the future, whereas even though it's not the future in our environment, in our universe, but it may be a reality. And I'm saying it is a reality. I'm saying it's not a reality that exists on Earth, in our solar system, but we have infinite solar systems. We have infinite things that exist infinitely. And if it exists in the mind, I'm talking my own personal philosophy. If it exists in the mind, therefore it exists. So I wrote a story. It takes place in the future. It's a weird story for a person who's a practical person. Here's a guy. He's going to school to be a social worker, or this guy, he's going to be a lawyer, or this guy's going to be a doctor, or this one's going to be a scientist. This may not be a practical thing. When you listen, when you hear me read this story, it may not be. But my argument is this: if it exists in my mind, and if it exists in your mind, and if you're on the battlefield and you're fighting, and that man you shot down, whatever existed in his mind, and whatever exists in the minds of men throughout the globe, and what is the globe? Let's look at the globe compared to the universe. This globe. Look at an ant. What is the globe? What is the earth? Who are we? We that exist. Who are we compared to this infinite, magnificent, enormous universes, eternal universes, eternal existences? So whatever exists in the minds of men exists in the reality of the universe. It may not be the universe that we walk and abide in and walk and argue in, but there are so many universes. In our universe, this little tiny universe, Earth, and Mars, and Jupiter can, look at Jupiter. You can put hundreds of Earths in Jupiter, the planet Jupiter. But what is Jupiter? What is Jupiter? To the infinite universe. Oh, it's so magnificent. Okay? Look at the entire universe. And we can't look at the entire universe. But let's look at some of these things. There are planets bigger than Earth, than Jupiter. Why? It exists in our minds. And if it exists in our minds, it exists. Not in our own personal, physical realities, but it exists in the reality of the nature of the infinitive nature of things. Yes, we are predestined. I was here yesterday. I was here 1,000 years ago, and so were you. I was here 1,000,000 years ago, and so were you. And 1,000,000 years ahead, I will be there. It is an eternal existence, eternal, which we cannot comprehend. Can a 5-year-old child comprehend what a 35-year-old scientist can comprehend? Yes, you got children geniuses. Can a 4-year-old child understand a man like Einstein? Of course, the answer is no. But I'm trying to show you, you have this great big thing, and we call that thing God. And it's a scary principle, because if we think of God, it becomes, whoa, magnificent. So we are tiny, minute elements in a universe that is so gigantic that none of us can explain or none of us can understand. Okay, ultimately, when I deal with my idea of the theory of predestination, when I deal with my idea of predestination, it's all about God. He creates everything, time, and what we do, what we are. He has presetted. He is the master of everything, of time, ideas, reality, unreality. And so when I write, I keep that in mind. So you guys who are in my cups, I'm getting ready to move to my station, E equal MC squared, rock and roll. And I will begin reading from my latest publication, The War has begun. This is Musa, Matt Meacham Jr., signing out on God's earth.